Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast. Today, we are building your know, like, and trust factor. So let's get into it.
Welcome to the Beginner Photography Podcast, a weekly podcast for those who believe that moments matter most and that a beautiful photo is more than just a sum of its settings. A show for those who want to do more with the gear they have to take better photos today. And now, your host, Raymond Hatfield.
Welcome back to this episode of the Beginner Photography Podcast. You have heard me say it before that photography is a service. It's not a product. The best technical photographer does not always win. We are dealing with people, and people like to work with people. They like other people. Now this week I chat with Whitney, who shares why getting people to know, like, and trust you is imperative to your success, much more than simply knowing how to use your camera. So, in the vein of building know, like, and trust, I want to tell you, this has been a week for me. This has been a real couple of weeks, honestly. With the constant increase in coronavirus cases, restrictions tightening up again, and weddings being pushed back until who knows when. On top of that, Friday before last, my grandmother had passed away, and I had not been taking it well at all. So I just quickly wanted to take a moment to thank all of you who had reached out to personally send your condolences or your messages of love. It really did mean a lot to me, and I won't forget it. So, with as much as I did feel as if I was struggling these past 2 weeks, there has also been some serious wins. I have an upcoming video that I'll be releasing soon that required me to take some updated family photos, and those photos turned out real well. I had them printed and they arrived, and now they're hanging in my house, and they just simply turned out much better than I would have imagined. So I'm happy about that, and I will share that video soon. But, for me, it is time to not get stuck, to not feel beat down. Grieve, but then get back up and keep going, because that is simply the only option. So before we get into today's interview, as always, I do save a portion of the interview focused on the business side of photography just for premium members who want to earn a living with their camera. So this week, premium members will learn Rhea's best tips for growing your know, like, and trust factor with potential clients on Instagram, the importance of having an email list of potential clients, and what you can do and say to get them excited to book with you, and what Rhea is doing this week that you can too to boost her know, like, and trust factor to book more shoots. Now, if you want the answers to those questions, you can become a premium member by heading over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com and clicking the premium membership button at the top of the page. So with that, let's go ahead and get on into today's interview. You left your corporate accounting job to pursue photography full-time, and that's a big step. That's a real big step. Tell me when you knew that photography was going to play an important role in your life.
Oh, I love that. So it was such a big step. And I'm going to kind of back up a little bit because when I was in corporate America, I always had an interest in photography, like since little girl. But I became privy to this class that this guy taught in DC at a studio. And so that's kind of how my whole, I stepped my little toe in the pool of photography, and it just opened and my world changed and my eyes opened and just so much changed for me. So I would absolutely have to say, me taking that leap of faith, taking this class, it was like a 6-month class in a studio, and you learn how to shoot in manual and how to manipulate light and everything like that. So it was like this intro to professional photography course. And it just changed. I knew then that I was like, oh, this is I'm so happy to be here. I love everything, I was just really enthralled in learning and just pour myself in it. And I just had a feeling that things would never really be like, I was just, it was my thing. It was my thing. It's always been my thing, but I wouldn't call myself a professional until I really knew how to manipulate light and shoot in manual, right? Like shoot in whatever type of lighting scenarios I was placed in. That was really big for me because I was just scared to like be this professional and then really not know what I was going through.
Sure, sure. So I know I had a very short period in the corporate world. It wasn't in accounting or anything, important, I guess. But I know that it can take up a lot of your time. It can take up a lot of who you are, and even your free time if you're given a phone or like a laptop to bring home with you. So walk me through the process, or the decision rather, to commit to taking a 6-month photography course. Like, that had to have been a big commitment for you. What were you hoping to get out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's at the time it was such a big commitment. Like, to be honest, the class was on like Thursday nights. I was, in corporate America, but I was a fairly new like college grad. I went to Howard University. I was working and living in DC. So like Howard's in DC. And so I had a lot of like friends, and it felt like Thursday nights was like our happy hour. We would get together, just go to a happy hour, have fun. Friday's the next day, here comes the weekend. And it was just like, that type of thing. And so I, at that time, it's so crazy to say and to think, but this was so true. I was just like, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm gonna miss my friends. Like, I'm gonna miss happy hour for 6 months, But at the end of the day, I was just like, why not? I had just turned, I want to say I had just turned 25. Don't get me like, yeah, I think I was about to turn 25. So it was like, okay, this could be really exciting, really fun. I think it was like $150 a month or something like that. And again, I had never invested in anything ever outside of, going to college. And so it was like, okay, $150 a month. Okay. 6 months, it's going to take me through the winter, which is like all these things, but it was definitely a big sacrifice. And I think looking back, it just was, it was just that small decision that changed it for me. I'm so thankful for my younger self for just being like, okay, girl, try it, do it. Why not? This is something that you're really interested in. You're obviously, how I became even aware of the course is my coworker. I love her. She's like, who kind of introduced me to it all. So she's like, hey, my mom is taking this photography course and she needs some subjects to stand in for her homework assignment. She was like, you and 2 of my other coworkers, like, you guys, you ladies should come down and be the subjects. I was like, okay, why not? Photo shoot. Yeah, we're totally down. So we go, and she had this paper with all of these homework assignments. One was like a silhouette, and one was like, document how far someone has come, or document how far someone has to go. And one was like a rule of thirds. It was like all of these things. And I was so into it. Like, I was like, oh, well, we have to do a silhouette. We have to wait till the sun goes down because you can't do a silhouette with the sky, whatever. I had no idea. Like, she was like, she kept saying, no, there's a way to do it. And I was like, no, girl, you got to wait till the sun, whatever. And she was like, you're really into this. I was just so into it. And that's how she told me about the class, how the universe works and everything. Her teacher ended up being down there. Like, we were shooting in Georgetown, DC. He was there. He just walked up on us. She's like, oh my gosh, look, it's, Daryl. And so she introduced us and we started chatting. He was an old Howard grad, and he was like, you should take the class. He was like, do you have a camera? And I was like, yeah. And, he was just asking me. So anyway, it was just one of those things. Everything worked out for its reasons, and there's a reason for everything. But at the time, it was a huge sacrifice, but I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad I did it because owning a business is a sacrifice. And so that was just like a little chip of the iceberg that had me kind of steer into a direction that was going to like take me a lot, to a whole new place.
So when you're in college, you are studying for something very specific. In your case, it was accounting, right? It was numbers and finance. Yeah. And then very shortly after you had graduated, you had thought to yourself, hey, wait a second, there's this other thing here, and this is pretty cool. What was it that made you think, you know what, I can do this, I can go out on my own, and I can be successful at it, regardless of having spent 4 years in college to earn a degree?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it took a good amount of time for me to really get there. Because to be completely honest, my mindset entering into the class was, oh, I'm just learning. Like, I will never charge anyone. I would never charge anyone. And it's so funny. I was dating a guy at the time, and I told him that. And he kind of, it was a horrible relationship. But anyway, he kind of held it over my head as I grew into being this professional that charged. He was like, well, I thought you said you would never charge anyone. But I'm like, when you know better and you know more, you have to operate in that space. And so when I was going in, I just didn't know, right? I didn't know about the profession. I didn't know about it as a career. I didn't really understand like all the genres, you know what I mean? Like in my mind, it was just like, I have this camera. I love to take pictures. And I'm gonna take pictures, and so yeah, like it was just kind of game changing, this whole like, the process of it all. But it took a while for me to get to the place where I was like, I can do this. It took almost about like 3 years to be about exact, like a little over 3 years. And my story of going full time, I got fired. Right? Like I got fired for the second time. And by that time, that's 3 years in, like, I had kind of built the momentum and just really was shooting every weekend. I was shooting every weekend for, booking sessions and stuff like that. And so I knew, I was like, okay, I could probably really do this. And I had so many people tell me like, you could do this full time. And I wasn't sure, leaving this 9 to 5 with this salary and, insurance. It's just it's scary. You're like, well, how do you know? And how are you going to cover your bills and all of that? But it just worked out like so great. And by the time I got fired for the second time, I wasn't really ready to go full time, but I already had a plan. Because the first time I got fired, which was like 9 months before, was like, okay, I'm not ready to be full time. I'm going to go find a job, but I'm going to get myself there. Like I was giving myself a little bit more time, blah, blah, blah. I don't even know what that meant, but God had a different plan for me. And so, yeah, I had a plan. Like I had kind of a plan, the savings, paid off my car, paid off some debt, like just kind of like leaned out my expenses so that if the opportunity, when it was time, it made sense. But it came sooner than I expected. And I'm grateful. I love it. I love being in this space. I love working for myself. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, what you said there about leaning out your expenses, that's a big thing. When you first get started, it's very fun to think like, oh, this is a business expense. I will just go ahead and charge this or whatever it is. It was smart to take, but obviously having an accounting background, a little bit about finances and you know how it works more so than the average person. But I want to go back to kind of those beginnings. When you decided to sign up for that photography class and you started shooting on your own, what was the hardest part about photography for you specifically to learn?
Oh, that's a really good question. For some people, it is the idea of like shooting in manual or manipulating light, which to me, that concept of manipulating light is something that you will continuously always work on. I want people to really understand that. Their lighting photography is nothing but manipulating light. And there's just so many different types of light, so sometimes people really get so worked up in this, oh, I have to, know for fact on every little way to manipulate light. And I think that is a part of the journey that really, you find people that have been in it for 20 years and they're just like, oh, I, just learned this new thing, or they're just feeling confident, So anyway, for me, it wasn't shooting in manual. I think for me, it was really just kind of building out a business that felt authentic and true to the type of business that I wanted to have. And so, because I learned, my whole journey in photography has been me investing in education for the next level, the whole journey. And when I look back on it, it makes sense. And I'm that type of person. Like, I'm the type of person where I'll take a course, I'll do a program, I'll get a coach, I will do these things that will open, answer the questions I need, open up doors that I need in order so that I can like save time and get to, doing the things that I really want to do and not try to figure it out on my own and all this other kind of stuff. So for me, it was like learning about the business that I wanted to create. Like I didn't want to be like high volume, low price point. I wanted to attract really quality clients that cared about how they looked. They cared about how they showed up. They really loved like good imagery, like they valued it. So that when I said my price point, it wasn't like, oh girl, like you're tripping. It was like, yeah, how do we get this on the calendar? That was my whole thing. And I think in the beginning, I didn't have, I didn't see a lot of that and for where I was, and I kind of had to get over just my fear of pricing and like understand there's like so many different types of photographers, like shoot and burn and heavy post-production and high quality. I mean, there's just so many different types, fashion and, weddings and just all these things. And so it was really like building out the business that I really wanted, that attracted the type of people that I wanted, that could keep, me in business. That was really my biggest challenge in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about that because building the business is something that is, it takes a lot of work. And I kind of describe to my own wedding couples who are like looking for help. Sometimes I'll ask like, what's been the hardest part about planning your wedding? And it always seems to come back to the fact that they've never been married before and that this whole thing is new. And, it's kind of the same when it comes to photography business owners. They know that they like the camera in the same way that a couple knows that they like each other, but they've never taken that next step. They've never done the business before. So that is always the challenge. And coming up with, always looking for help, finding those trusted advisors for you is so smart that I hope everybody listening picked up on and really takes to heart. So when you started doing that, when you started reaching out and you thought, I'm really going to build this business the way that I want to, especially having a more of a high-end brand where you're targeting a very specific person, we all know that getting somebody to know, like, and trust you is extremely, extremely, extremely important. So in that sense, what did building a know, like, and trust factor mean to you and your clients?
Yeah, no, for sure. For me, one of the biggest things that I did to kind of start that know, like, and trust factor is like really building out my website or in a way that showcase the type of people that I really like to shoot or the outcomes, my style of work. And then also listing out my core values on my website. I know that like sounds so small and whatever, and people are like, well, why would you do that? But to me that was important because I wanted people to like really like resonate with me. If it resonated, they're like, oh, I really like, these are great core values, faith, trust, loyalty, stuff like that, things that matter a lot to me. Just kind of really helped to repel the people that were just not really looking for all of that. They're like, this is too much. I'm not trying to do all that. And then attract those people that is like, no, this is the type of person that I really want to work with, and still to this day, like I get people that will comment on that, will comment on my core values on my site or comment just on my story, just things that I share about me in my about me section because they resonate with it. And they're just like, it's just something about you. I just know, that you're the photographer for me. And I just love, X, Y, and Z. And to me, it means so much because it's like, good, so it started on my website for sure. And then it definitely trickled to my Instagram and just like being authentic in my voice and in things that I actually just liked, and being confident in that because I remember early on, you're building and all this and you care about your peers' opinions and all of these things when in actuality, it doesn't matter because they're not your clients. They're just your industry peers. But I remember some guys kind of critiquing my style or critiquing this like heavy portrait photographer style. And just, especially being in weddings, like saying, nobody wants that. Like people want moments, people want documentary, photojournalistic style. Like to have just portraits, like that's cheating, right? And I was just like, at first it really got to me, but then over time I'm like, I just became more confident because that is what I loved. Like, I loved even looking at my parents' old photos or my aunts and uncles or whomever. I just loved a classic timeless portrait. Like, looking at them, pose. Back in the day, they used to kind of look off and have this like really like stoic look or whatever. But I just love that. Like, that's just my thing. And so I became just more confident in this is just what I do. Like, yes, I capture moments. Yes, I do, capture authenticity within the day. Absolutely. Like, I think that that's a part of wedding, for me. But I also let my people know that, like, I'm also going to capture you in a portrait. Like, I'm going to make sure that you look good, that you're posed well, that the light is good, you and your new husband or partner, or you and your family, you by yourself and stuff like that. And so, just being true to who I was, like, and what I was passionate about kind of, to me, starts that trust and that no like trust factor that people don't even think that they're factoring in when it comes to, inquiring or booking with me.
Do you think that was a hard decision in the beginning to go I guess, let me rephrase the question. I know everybody knows their own flaws, right? And when it comes to, putting myself out there on social media, I know that I just don't spend a lot of time on social media. But when I'm thinking about, sharing who I am, my mind immediately goes to oh, well, let me start talking about my views on, politics and religion and all these things that I know that I don't want to share. All the things that people don't want to hear from. How do you deal with that balance?
Yeah. Well, so I would say, like, up until probably recently in COVID and just the racial discrimination that's happening, I think I really wasn't that vocal on too much politics, or I'll definitely say politics. Religion, I am, I'm a woman of faith. And so I put that out there because it's part of my core value. But I have friends of all different faiths, Christian, Muslims, Jewish. I mean, I don't discriminate in that way. I'm just like to share the type of person that I am and the faith that I do lean on, because to be honest, I would not be here without it. To me, it's a gift that was given, and it's a ministry that I do, especially with weddings, But I just really, it's a fine line. And just as far as, again, you have to, for me, I'm always thinking about, and it took me a while to really get this. This is something I like coach my people on, my students on. But when we're speaking, it's more so, it's not about you. It's not about your what your thoughts are, blah, 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 blah. It's about your target audience and what they want to hear from you. Right? Because we have to speak to them. We don't have to speak about ourselves and our own thoughts and what we feel and what we think matters. I think we really need to be tailoring the conversation or our messaging around what they want to hear from you, what they need to hear from you, like some, messaging that is valuable and insightful and helpful. And so, when you're considering how to share things that matter to you, I think it's most important that you think about the audience that you're speaking to. And my audience, I think in a sense, on things that are happening in the world that are affecting us, they don't mind me speaking to it. They don't mind me taking a stance, and I'm not mad at that. And because of that, I am bold and authentic in that way, but in a way that's still like classy and like well received, and well put together, well crafted, not too, whatever. But that's just the type of person that I am, and it's the type of people that I like to attract. And so it is hard. It is like a fine line. Like, it is a little bit of a balance to find what works for you. But when you really get clear on who your people are and like why they resonate with you and things that matter to them, then you can tailor your message and you can be authentic and share, but in a way that will resonate with them. Not necessarily all about how you feel and all these things. It's all about your target audience that you're trying to attract.
That is a huge mindset shift right there that I had never thought of, but makes 100% sense in my head, I think like, well, what sorts of things should I be sharing? And it's like, well, I like mint chocolate chip ice cream. I could probably share that. And I don't want to share these views on, other things that I have or, whatever it is, because you're always so worried about alienating people for some reason. And I never see any in between. It's like the trivial and then the radical, I suppose, and
Yeah.
it's finding whatever's in between there, I guess, which sounds to me like the real meat that I
Yeah.
have a hard time dealing with. So thank you for sharing that. It's not about you. It's about what your ideal client wants to hear from you. That is a
Yeah.
huge difference. Huge difference.
I love that. I would also add that people want to hear that you love your mint chocolate chip ice cream. Like, because I mean, I find that, they'll start gifting you that or it's just it's very interesting. Of course, you don't want to go too heavy on it, but people love to hear special nuances about you, about your likes and your interests. And to me, we're talking about that know, like, and trust. That's that know and like piece that people are like, oh my God, I like mint chocolate chip too. Or, oh my God, I had the worst experience with mint chocolate chip. Let me tell you what happened to me,
I want
and
to hear it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And you're like, this is so cool. Like, I didn't even think we were going to have a conversation about this, but that's just kind of starts to open you up as just a human and, create people, have them creating a dialogue with you, where they get to know you more and they get to like you more, and all of that know and like ends up leading to trust in when you're talking about sales and selling and things like that.
So let me ask you a more direct question, and that is, when it comes to know, like, and trust, I can tell you I'm Raymond, I like the Dodgers, and I have a good amount of reviews from past brides that says that my photography is, that they enjoy it. Is that enough? Is that enough? Should we be digging deeper? What am I missing here?
Definitely digging deeper. So I think a good way to go deep is, okay, you have to share more of your story. Like, Raymond, how did you get into photography? What inspires you about being behind the camera? What is it that got you here? How did you even start to shoot weddings? And a lot of times people they downplay their story because it sounds just so regular to them. I mean, it's just a regular thing, but it's not regular. There's something about it that made you say, hey, I want to shoot couples. I want to shoot this type of couple. I want to shoot at these type of places. Or even the Dodgers. Like, what is it from your experience growing up or whatever that kind of had you start to like baseball and, get into, being interested in the Dodgers and things like that. And so you want to go deep. You want to share your story with how it got you to being the photographer that you are, whether that's part-time, full-time, whatever it is, it's important. People want to connect with the creative. The like piece is, like you said, like, you like the Dodgers, but I'm sure you like a lot of other things. People resonate. It's, again, I say it's about repelling and attracting. And so the more I can speak to, oh, I'm a Nordstrom girl, or I love TJ Maxx, or, whatever. I went to a HBCU. Now I'm like repelling those people that are like, that's not my type. Or I'm attracting those people that are like, oh my gosh, I love Nordstrom too. And I went to this school, and, it's this like similarity. I like people to think about it like, I'm sure there's someone on the internet somewhere that you really look up to, right? You feel like you know them for some reason because you feel like you know them, you really like them, you like the way that they talk, the jokes that they share, what they wear, how they show up on camera or whatever. And then in a sense, you start to trust them. You don't even really know them for real, but in your mind, it's like, I know them, like, and so but what is it about that person that made you get all the way there to think, oh, I do know them? Like, it's probably the way that they have shared things that they've gone through or experiences, them being authentic to themselves. They probably share things that they like, and you probably find a similarity in that. So you want to go deep. You want to really share your story, share your likes outside of photography, just the type of person that you are, things that you're gravitated towards. I like to say things that I call these like your business pillars. Like you can just start conversations about it just so easily. You can just like ramble on and because you care about it, you like it, and then you're going to attract those people that are like-minded. And like I said, that all ends up leading to the trust factor. I also think the trust factor can be built when you position yourself, your messaging, position yourself as helpful and valuable and as the expert, right? So you have to be confident. I know what I know. You know, I'm a photographer. I've photographed weddings before. This is not my first wedding. And so I can share messaging. I can share tips and tricks out there for new brides. And now they see me as the expert. They are like, oh, she really knows what she's talking about. I really like her. You know, they might pass it on. They might incorporate it into their wedding planning. But now I'm becoming, you know, trustworthy in the fact of being the expert, being the wedding photographer, being the senior photographer, or being the newborn photographer that has done this. You've done this, you know? So go a little deeper. Just go a little deeper. I think sometimes it scares us photographers because we want to hide behind our photos. Like, it's so easy to do, but people truly want to know the creative. They want to know the person that's behind the camera and resonate, you know, they want to, you know, resonate with you.
Yeah, so you said there, which again, I think is really important there, to build that trust, you need to, you know, share your experience, position yourself as that expert. When you're first getting started and you really do have a lack of professional experience, is there maybe another avenue or another suggestion that you would have as far as building that trust factor to start getting your first few clients?
Oh yeah, well, I think that with at every stage, there's still something that you can share. You just have to stop looking at it like it's so minimal or it doesn't matter, right? For example, for me, when I first took this course, right, from the day that I decided to take the course, that's something that I could share. And the journey that I learned in the course, the type of people that I met, the type of things that we did, you know, the aha moments that I had, or, you know, and so when I would go out and shoot and, you know, I'm learning and oh, now I really love a 51.8. Why? Like, what about the 51.8 changed it for you as opposed to the kit lens? Or when I really started to find my light, like the light that I love to shoot in, why? Like, what about that light just made me so excited? And it sounds small and minimal, but when you start to just like think about it, people want to know. Like, there's your clients, they don't know about a 51.8. They don't know about finding the light. You know, maybe they know a little bit, maybe, but for the most part, they don't. But it's your journey. Like, I think sometimes we're so focused on the end, like this end goal and whatever that is, right? Because by the time you get to the end goal, it's a moving target. You're going to have a whole nother end goal, right? And so it's really about just like really like leaning into your real journey that is happening right here in front of your eyes, and seeing that you're, you know, with every little thing that you experience, with every little thing that you learn and you push yourself to do something new, there is some storytelling behind it that really is just kind of different than what other people have experienced, you know? So I would just say stop downplaying like your journey, right? And just actually kind of zoom out. Like we can say that we're photographers, zoom out and see the big picture, because there's so much that's actually happening. Even though you haven't hit that target, there's still so much that's happening that matters and that's important to you. And so just sharing, you know what I mean? And I think that in the beginning, I was just so hungry. I didn't even know, I've never had a goal of being full-time or anything. I was just so hungry to be a photographer and to be creating. And so through my journey early on, I just would share, you know, random photos, why I liked it, you know. Of course, there was no lives and story. No, there wasn't stories and lives and all of that. It was just more about sharing the work. But through me sharing, people could see my eye transforming. They could see the passion. They could see the creativity. And that just helped. Because I put myself out there, then even if it was like, I don't care, a picture of a flower or it didn't matter. I would take pictures of a lot of my girlfriends. I'm in a sorority, so I had a lot of sorority sisters. I was just constantly hungry to photograph. And early on, and I just continued to share. Put it out there, Instagram specifically. And so, you know, it just kind of opened and people took me more serious and they could see my eye transforming. And when I look back now, I see it more clearly, but I just was being bold in what was happening in front of me and not downplaying it. You know what I mean? So it's a balance. And let me be honest, I did not do this seamlessly every day. You know what I mean? Like there were a ton of days when I'm just like, oh, but I want this, but I want that, but I want this, but I want that. And I still have those days for sure, my wants. But it's all about the journey. You know what I mean? And when we can like really just shift our mind a little bit and really like acknowledge what we're actually going through, as opposed to always trying to hit this end goal and not realize, you know, really seeing what's happening before us, then that's how you find the storytelling.
Oh, that's powerful. You know, to think of it as a story and less strategic, I suppose, like most you know, the spaces that you're in when it comes to, you know, being in business, you're really told to think about things strategically and not just do things to throw them up against the wall. But what you're sharing here is, I don't want to say that it goes against that, but being open, being vulnerable requires a little bit more of that reaction rather than, you know what, next Tuesday I'm going to share a story about that time where this happened to whatever. And that's I could see how that would obviously build that trust with your potential clients. But when it comes to the client process, right, I want to know, for you, you know, this is very important to your business, building this know, like, and trust factor. It's the only way that you can build a luxury brand. So I want to know, what are you going to do this week to build know, like, and trust factor with potential clients of yours?
You are listening to the free version of the Beginner Photography Podcast, where each week you learn how world-class photographers see and capture the world around them. If you want to hear the extended interview with their best business tips to learn how to make money with your camera, then become a premium member today by heading over to beginnerphotographypodcast.com and click the premium membership button to join now.
That whole idea right there, that strategy when it comes to email is something that, I mean, nobody is talking about right now. And I really think that if you're able to nail that and give them that information that they're looking for while they're in that inquiry stage, I mean, like you said right there, I mean, they're really going to have no reason to go anywhere else. And I mean, that was just fantastic tip that, you know, we don't hear enough of on the podcast, as far as, you know, just that follow-up and really, I mean, driving up your sales essentially. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. I want to ask you a question now. And when I was doing my research on you, I listened to a few of the podcasts that you've been on. And on one of them, you shared a story about your parents' wedding photos, right? And how your parents' wedding photographer was a fraud. Can you tell me again what happened and how that kind of shaped who you are as a photographer?
Absolutely. So that's a part of my why and within weddings, truthfully. But yeah, my parents got married in 83 or 82 or 83. And so back in the day, film days, you know, and in a small town in North Carolina, in July, hot summer day, like they tell me all the time. It's like they tell me the story. And long story short, their wedding photographer, the whole time he was acting like he was taking shots, you know, getting at good angles. They paid him money, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth. Come to find out that he had no film in the camera, and then he was just a fraud. He was a complete fraud. And my dad tells the story, oh, your mom cried for like 3 months straight or 3 weeks straight. How, you know, he always changes the duration. You know, she was really sad, devastated, rightfully so, because if you think about it, that on that day, you know, her life was changing. She was becoming a wife. And all of her parents were both alive, who are now deceased. His parents were both alive, who are now deceased. All of her siblings were there. One of her brothers has passed away. So the point, like, the people in the room will never be able to be in the room ever again, right? And there were just a lot of, like, those photographs were going to, like, become more valuable over time. The more, you know, time passed and people left this earth, the more that those photographs just mean to them. And the idea of her not having them just crushed her completely. And they told the story, and I was a little, you know, younger. I you know, it hurt, you know, because when you go back, you're like, oh, I want to see your wedding albums, or I want to see you guys on your wedding day. And they just didn't have that many photographs at all from it. The pictures actually that they did have were from like friends that were there, that were guests of the wedding. But again, we were talking about the 80s here in North Carolina. Like a lot of people didn't have like cameras and, you know, whatever, but a few of their friends would send, you know, made a book or sent them a couple of photographs, and those pictures just like, they cherish, you know, it could be 4 photos and they're just like looking and, you know, just really cherishing those moments. And it just made me realize like how important it is a role that we play, us wedding photographers in the day. You know, we are like, to me, one of the most important vendors, because it's like we bring it all together. We bring, you know, we photograph the family, we photograph the ambiance, we photograph everything. And the photos, yes, you charge however much you charge a wedding, but to me, over time, it truthfully becomes priceless because number one, a lot of, you know, everyone in that room probably will never be in that room, in one room together ever again, right? It's the combining of families. You never know what's going to happen. And so, you know, when I go about photographing a wedding day, I really pay attention to the elders. To me, it's so important to get some portraits or get really beautiful shots of the elders in the room. And because you just, those people, it's family lineage. It's, I don't have to know them, but I know for a reason. I know that they matter to my couples, you know, that, or maybe my couples make me aware, like my grandmother, my great grandmother, or whatever, my grandfather, great grandfather, great uncle, you know, what doesn't matter. I just am always like trying my best to just like photograph moments, yes, photograph ambiance and dancing and dress and decor and all the beautiful things, but also like just pay attention to the people that are in the room that have helped raise them, especially the elders. I cannot say that enough. The people that sit in the first 2 rows, just really being aware of how important these images will be post, you know, the wedding once it's done. And just makes me think back on being able to see the couple of photographs that my parents have of their wedding day and who was alive still and what they looked like and just their emotions on their face and just all of the things. And also just seeing my parents in their youth, like seeing them, you know, starting this new chapter in their life and, you know, just being young and youthful and stuff like that. So it is like really, really a core part of my why behind weddings. Like, I will never run off with your photos. Like I care too much. I value what I do and I understand how big of a role this is that I play. And so I treat it like a Major League Baseball game. I'm like, we are going to kill it. I come to win, you know, hit home runs every time. It doesn't matter what it takes. Until the final minute down, I'm giving it my all. And so that's just really how I approach the wedding day.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, you know the devastation that it has if a couple were to lose their photos, and that has to just drive you so hard to really deliver for your clients. So I'm sure that even though it's a very unfortunate situation, that your clients really appreciate hearing that story. That, you know, maybe people wouldn't even think about sharing as you know, it could potentially bring up just the possibility that could happen, you know, and that could be bad. But obviously, it's worked out for you for the best, and I love to hear that. And even though, you know, as I said, it was an unfortunate situation, that you came out ahead here. That you came out ahead.
Yeah, and that's just that piece of sharing. You know what I mean? Like really, I knew that it mattered to me. You know, I knew that story was special to me because I'll never forget. My sister was getting ready; she was about to get married, and I was pulling images for her bridal shower of us when we were little girls and stuff. And I came across like a couple of wedding images and I ended up showing my mom and dad and they both just became teary-eyed and just emotional. And it was just like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? Like my photographs probably will do that to my couple. You know, you just never know. And it's just one of those moments where it's just like, okay, this matters. Like what I do matters so much. You know what I mean? And also just being just also caring. Like I care so much, and being able to like verbalize why I care and how it hit for me with my parents. I'm not married. I've never been married either. So I don't have a personal story like for myself, but I do have a personal story as it relates to my parents. And I think that personal stories really start to show like character of people. And to me, you know, again, I'm speaking to my target audience. They care about that. Like they care about that. And so, yeah, it's just part of my why.
I mean, that's just such a great story. Again, such a great story. But it sounds to me like kind of everything that we've talked about today really kind of boils down to just like friendship 101, right? You know, like really try to be nice to somebody, let them get to know you, and just let them trust you, or build trust with them. And
Yeah.
yet, you know, we're all taught, you know, how to be friends with people. But I want to know from your experience, is there somewhere where you see maybe new photographers just totally dropping the ball and getting it wrong?
Uh, it would definitely have to be with being consistent. Just being consistent with putting themselves out there and speaking to what they do and who they do it for. You know, they're like, well, I already shared this, or I don't really have anything to create. I don't have anything new to share. And I get it. I've definitely been there. But I tell my students and my mentees all the time, we are master creators with this camera in our hand. We're master creators. Now, how you go about creating is up to you, but we hold so much power with these cameras, so much, right? So we have to like get outside of like our head and just get out there and create, right? Make opportunities, put yourself out there, connect with people that you want to create with, you know, do some collaboration, reshare your old work. Like there's nothing wrong with like, you know, I think it's so funny. We'll be like, oh, I already shared this couple. I already shared this. It's like, okay, share them again, you know? It's okay. Like, you know, that's what it is. I would rather you share it again than you not share anything and then you're ghosting and then you just dump on us and it's just like this inconsistent thing, and that's going to mess with the algorithm of your engagement. I mean, like it goes down a whole rabbit hole. And so I think that a lot of photographers just don't show up consistently enough to promote themselves, to speak on what they do and who they do it for and who they are as a person. Um, because consistency is what's going to help build the momentum. No, period. I feel like I could teach you strategy and stuff all day, but you have to consistently do it and consistently show up in order for it to get, you know, you the clients that you desire.
I don't. I'm not sure that there's a better way to end it than that. I know that I've kept you longer than we were supposed to here. I really appreciate you being so open and honest about everything that we talked about today. Before I let you go, I got one last question for you. And is there anything that maybe I didn't ask you that you really want to make sure that new photographers or those just learning about the know, like, and trust factor really understand going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a great conversation. I don't really have too much, but if I had to add one thing, I would say, you know, really start to get a good idea of the type of business that you want to have. Meaning just like the type of services you want to offer, the type of price point, the type of money you want to make, the type of just everything, and feel okay in creating those goals. I think sometimes we kind of feel sleazy, you know, with it, but you are running a business, this, or either it's an expensive hobby, it's up to you, right? But if you're doing it for business and you want business means you want to be profitable, then you really need to get clear on the type of business that you want to run and have some goals. Once you get clarity around that, I think be realistic about where your pain points are, where you struggle, and find help in that. I just cannot reiterate that enough. I think a lot of times beginner photographers are so scared to make an investment in education or coaching or mentoring or something that is going to just change the whole game for you. I know it to be true because that is my story, you know? So the quicker you get over that, the quicker you get to like start the journey to where you want to go. Period. So I would just say that, like, don't be scared to invest in yourself. Invest. I say the word invest as opposed to like cost, because you have to think about it as you're going to get a return on investment when you do the work and you show up. But it is so doable. It's so possible. I know, like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's just about putting in the work. So yeah, that's what I was saying.
I said earlier I didn't think that there was a better way to end it, but sure enough, there you go. You just topped it right there. Ray, really, I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing everything that you did. Before I let you go, can you let the listeners know where they can find you and keep up with you online?
Absolutely. So you can follow me, my Ray Whitney Photography on Instagram at Ray Whitney. That's spelled RHEA. Whitney, spelled regular. That's my Instagram handle. I also have a digital education platform called PhotoBomb Academy, where I help make your photos and your business bomb. That's my little slogan. So that's PhotoBomb Academy on Instagram. PhotoBombAcademy.com is the website. I would love for you to connect with me on there. Let me know that you found me from the podcast. I would absolutely love that. And yeah, so I'm always, my platform of choice, like I said before, is Instagram, but same things on Facebook, Ray Whitney Photography, PhotoBomb Academy. I have a free private Facebook group for the PhotoBomb Academy. So if you're looking for a community, you want to just like stay connected with me and learn more about offers and things that are coming down the pipeline with the Academy, I would absolutely love that. So join me in that group. It's where it goes down. I'm always like popping in and sharing gems with them to keep people moving forward, to build out the business that they dream of. And so, yeah, connect with me on there. Let me know that you found me from the podcast.
Oh, wonderful. Ray, again, thank you so much for coming on, sharing everything that you did. I really look forward to keeping up with you in the future and, keeping up with that consistency. And seeing more photos of you on Instagram. Again, that's the one thing that I definitely need to do.
And of you. I want to see photos of you and your. You got it. Thank you again so much for having me on here.
That interview really, really spoke to me. I would love to know what your biggest takeaway was, and be sure to share it in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group. For me, my biggest takeaway was just that it's not all about you, right? Like when you share things to build that know, like, and trust factor, it's not all about you. It's not every little detail about you. It is sharing, facts and things about your life, but sharing them through the lens of what your ideal client wants to see from you. Maybe they don't want to see me doing other hobbies like brewing beer or DIY woodworking or something. But they do want to see me interacting with my family. They do want to see the photos that I hang on the wall. They want to see other hobbies, but it's sharing things about me through the lens of what my ideal client would like to see. So I actually listened to Ray's advice and posted some photos of myself on Instagram these past couple of weeks. And yesterday, I actually posted a photo of my wife and I and the story of how we met on Craigslist. Now, normally, the photos that I post, they get 18 to 25 likes on each photo. And really, I just use Instagram as a form of staying relevant, right? I don't really have any sort of strategy truly behind it. But this one that I shared of me and my wife, a GoPro photo, right? Not even like a professional quality photo, a photo that I took with a GoPro. But the story that I shared has over 90 likes. And that to me blew me away, right? And the amount of comments from people who resonated, because back when we met, I guess 11 years ago, it was kind of still weird to meet somebody on the internet and be in a long-term relationship with them. But now I find that the majority of my couples are meeting on the internet, and there still might be a little bit of that weirdness that people still feel. So just me sharing, I suppose, that I've been in the same situation as them builds that know, like, and trust factor. I don't know. But, the proof of what Ray was saying there is to share more about you and be honest about, who you are and share that with your ideal clients. Blew me away. So she's on the right path, and now I'm on my way to building my know, like, and trust factor, I guess. So again, I would love to hear your biggest takeaway from this week's episode, which I would love for you to share in the Beginner Photography Podcast Facebook group. And with that, that is it for this week. Until next week, I want you to make do. I want you to make more. I want you to do more. And I want you to make do with what you got, because I promise you, it is better than you think. All right, see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Beginner Photography Podcast. If you enjoy the show, consider leaving a review in iTunes. Keep shooting, and we'll see you next week.